All right, so we're going to go over the Proline rulers, and I know these have been out for a while, but I thought a new video was in order. So they come in 5 different sizes, and you will notice on the rulers that the grooves in the center are actually different sizes, and that is what does your measuring for you. So they were designed, because I'm lazy and I don't like to measure and mark, to do perfectly spaced lines a certain distance apart. This one is the Proline II, happens to be one of the most popular ones, and comes in the Rulers for Rookies kits. And it does perfectly spaced lines a 1/2 inch apart. So what I'm going to do very quickly is it fits down over the shaft of your hopping foot, okay? So it's going to sit down in the groove. And remember, I had said in one of my videos that these 2 little scallopy things, it would look really cool if there were some evenly spaced lines in between. Say that was your border. Okay, so I'm just going to secure those threads. So what we're going to do is I'm sitting down in the groove, and I'm going to hold the one side, and I'm just going to stitch across. Now here's where it gets tricky, because I have this pre-stitched line that I have to travel along, okay? So I'm going to very carefully stitch along that, stop when I hit this side of the ruler, then I'm going to shift my ruler, and stitch down, very carefully stitch over, stop, shift my ruler, so it's kind of important that you have good control over your machine in order to do that stitching along the pre-stitched line. Stop. And we're just going to fill that up, so I'm just going to keep going. And you can see nice, perfectly straight lines, evenly spaced a 1/2 inch apart. Now, there are different feet. Some are a little wider, some are a little skinnier. So don't necessarily narrow in on the fact that yours might not be exactly a 1/2 inch. You just want to make sure that they're even. So you don't want this one a 1/2 inch and this one less, and so on and so on, okay? So if I wanted to do a cross hatching, and I would then turn the ruler this way, and I would come down to do that. But I like this border the way it is, so we're going to leave that. So we have this block here. Because rulers are expensive, I like to try and get a lot of use from them as we can. So I've got some lines here marked, and we're going to use these center lines here. And I'm just going to use the end of the ruler as the curve for this particular design. So remember, when we stitch and we're lining up our ruler, we have to be a 1/4 inch away from where we want to land over on the other side. So since I've got the 8 here, and I am a quilted to death kind of gal, I'm going to fill these areas with the 1/8 of an inch spacing. It does tend to take a little while, okay, and I'm going to go this way. So you'll also notice that they have all the degrees on it. So I'm going to use the 45-degree angle. If you do not feel comfortable doing the backtracking along your stitch line, so that would be going up, right? Then scooting your ruler and then just ever so slightly backtracking. You can do an up and down and then do all of your traveling in the ditch. I hope that just made sense. And every once in a while, just make sure that your 45 is still lined up. I don't worry too much. I just make sure it's parallel. To where I want to. So it's just parallel, it's not on that line. Just like in anything else, you will have a direction that you like to go in, more so than the other. But it's important to practice all directions so that you get used to holding the ruler and that you like the results in all those different directions. So now when I get up here, I'm just going to rotate, and my 45 is now going to, I've got a 45 down here, so I can line up on the vertical or I can line up on the horizontal. And there you have a really fun block design just using the Proline 8. So I think we're going to embellish this a little bit more, and I'm going to use the Proline 16. I know, crazy, it does a 1/16 of an inch, not a whole lot of people are as crazy as me, but I love, love, love it. So we're just going to fill these 4 areas with a 1/16 of an inch. When you're using the 1/16 of an inch, it almost feels like you're not even moving, which is normal because it's such a small spacing. I like to use this in place of a stipple. But I think what I'm going to do on this little block is both a stipple and this. Backtrack my way down here, and go over here, down here, so that I'm going in a direction that I like. Okay, so now I'm going to do this little area. Get it lined up. If you find that you've kind of gotten off kilter, don't try to drastically get back on a 45. Try and do it subtly so that you don't notice it as much. Have them going in that direction. The other thing that might look cool on this block really is to then do them all that way. So if you had 4 of these, that would look kind of cool. But I am going to show you the stippling. So one of the questions I get asked the most is, how do I do that little itty bitty sand stipple? And really there's no big technique to it. I've just put on my new stippling foot from Bernina, which is awesome. I'm gonna just pull up my thread. Now, you do not want to be in a stitch regulated mode. You want to be in a manual mode. So on the Bernina, I set it to manual, and I've got it at about 650. So just find the speed that you're most comfortable with. And I just kind of have a back and forth kind of motion, almost like a little tiny ribbon candy. If I find that I've missed a spot, I really just travel right back over the area to stitch that down. So it's not a traditional stipple where you're not trying to stitch over your previous stitching. The goal here is to really just mush down the fabric. And it does take a while, so you have to be committed when you start, because you are not going to be ripping these stitches out. Make sure as you're doing this that you're not wearing your shoulders as earrings, because they do not make attractive accessories. There we have this cute little block. I love how that looks. Now, knowing me, I would have to come back in and I would have to do something in here too, and it'd probably most likely be a small stipple. But or you know what would look really cute is the same 1/16 of an inch lines on there. So what do you think? Not too much room here, but another fun border design using, this is the Proline I. Just gonna, oops, better go back to my stitch regulated mode. Okay, I've got that. And then I'm gonna scoot my ruler. Okay, so I'm still here. I'm gonna scoot my ruler up until it hits the line on the top, stitch up to the middle, stop, and then I'm going to scoot it back so that I'm 1/4 of an inch away from where I started, so I have that nice swag. So you can use these for swags as well, which is really very good. So I'm just going to come to this side so that I can do one on this side, because then I'm going to do something in between. Okay, so I've stitched down. Now I'm going to go up to the top there, stitch midway, then scoot the ruler, and then down. Now what I'm going to do is, still using the Proline 1, I'm going to come in and do some 1-inch spacing. So I'm going to try and be really careful with that backtracking. Oh, rats, I grabbed the 2. Well, that kind of stinks. All right, so we're going to move to the 1. So just so you know, these ends are the same, so your swag would be fine. Let's try that again. So we're going to do a nice bigger spacing. There we go. That's what I wanted. I could have done this design with the 2, but I really just kind of wanted to do it with the 1 so that I have more space. And all the way down. And over. All right, so now I have my 1-inch spacing. And I'm going to take my Proline 4, okay, I'm going to sit down in there, okay, and I'm going to do some 1/4-inch diagonals. Now, if I were on a real quilt, I'd probably stop and restart over for the next one, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to backtrack over, and I'm going to have them go this way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back up this way first, just to fill up that little space that's there, then come back to where I started. Hopefully I should really kind of be meeting up with my other ones. Those didn't meet up so well. Then you have this really cool chevron. And we'll keep going over here. Go back this way. Fill up those spaces. Now, sometimes what happens is if your lines aren't matching up or something's a little off, it could also mean that your needle isn't exactly in the center of your hopping foot. So sometimes you just have to make little adjustments for that. And there we have a really fun, cool border as well. So, just to recap, when you're looking at purchasing rulers, make sure that you get some good ones that have the etched markings on them so they don't knock off. And make sure that there's multiple uses for them. So like I'll use these tops like I showed you for swags. You can use the sides for that as well. You can even use them for continuous curves if they're the right depth. You know, there's just a whole variety of different things. So remember, there's the 1 inch that I showed you, the 1/2 inch, we've got the 1/4 inch, the 1/8 of an inch, and yes, even the crazy 1/16 of an inch that I absolutely love.